And good evening, everyone. Live from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. This is the Coach's Box on the Regional Radio Sports Network and on 91.1 FM The Globe, WGCS Goshen. Good evening, and we are so glad that you could join us here on this Thursday evening. My name is Tanner Camp, and I'm filling in for Paul Condry as he is over at Indiana University South Bend getting ready for a nice CCAC matchup between the Titans and the best team in the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference and a receiving votes team in the St. Xavier Cougars. That match is scheduled for an airtime of 6:45 p.m. and a 7 p.m. Eastern Time start. So after you tune in here to the Coach's Box, be sure you head on over to our website at rrsn.com, click on watch/listen, and you can tune into that broadcast. But again, tune into that after the Coach's Box because we have got a great show for you here. Throughout the course of this week, I had a chance to talk with Romison Saint-Louis, the head football coach for the Elkhart Lions. And on the flip side, I also had a chance to talk with Craig Koehler, the head coach for the Concord Minutemen football team. And as both teams, for the Minutemen and for Elkhart, they have this week off as they get ready for their respective games next week, as we are now officially in postseason play for high school football. Classes 1, 2, 3, and 4 will play tomorrow evening, and then everyone will be playing next week. So had a chance to talk with them prior to their games over the course of this week. So we'll talk with that, and we're going to get a chance to talk with Dante Stanton to talk about Goshen College athletics as fall sports are nearing the end, and winter is just around the corner to get ourselves ready for men's and women's basketball. So a lot of different sports. We got American tackle football as well as Crossroads League, specifically Goshen athletics. So that's all coming up. We'll be back after this quick timeout, and when we come back, we'll get a chance to listen to when I had a chance to talk with Romison Saint-Louis, the head coach for the Elkhart Lions football team. Again, all this coming up after this timeout right here on 91.1 FM The Globe and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
For 30 years, the Lilliard Insurance Agency has been a proud sponsor of local sports in Michiana. Lilliard Insurance Agency is an independent insurance provider which offers its customer auto, home, business, life, and health insurance. They're located at 410 Lincoln Way West in Osceola and 17060 State Road 23 in South Bend. For more information, their phone number is 574-674-0015, and the website is www.realvalueins.com. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com. Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Welcome back here to the Coach's Box from Beef O'Brady's here in beautiful Granger, Indiana. I'm Tanner Camp, and I'm so happy to be joined here by Romison Saint-Louis, the head coach here for the Elkhart Lions. And first and foremost, Coach, thank you so much for taking some time just to chat for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
So let's just take a look back on the season at this point. You know, of course, you get the job in May after being at Peru for 4 years. And let's just talk a little bit about that experience, because you took that Peru team in 2018. They were 0-10, so no wins on the year. And you talk about a slow transformation from 2019, 6-6, so very respectable, 2020, 7-2. And then in your final campaign in 2021, it was 8-3. So needless to say, you did some really good things at Peru before coming here to Elkhart.
Yeah, and again, I always like to preface it with We did, but that 0-10 team was also under my leadership. So we had some work to do. But the good thing is we had the right people in the right spots. We had players who were really willing to work, who were willing to be challenged, and we had an administration who supported how we went about pushing our kids, how we went about challenging our kids, how we went about creating and building the program and holding our kids accountable. And so we had parents who supported as well. It takes a lot of people and a lot of effort to win games, and we had people that wanted to do that. So I really enjoyed my time at Peru for sure.
Yeah, and then, of course, after that stint, then, of course, like as I mentioned, you got the job at Elkhart in May 10th. And, of course, the one other thing is that this is not the first time that you've applied for a position or have had a position here in the Elkhart area. So just tell us a little bit about that previous experience about potentially getting a job in the Elkhart area.
Yeah, so I was in Illinois. I think it's been about 8 years now. I was in Illinois coaching, and I knew I wanted to be a head coach. And my wife's family is from Elkhart, so I applied for the Elkhart Memorial job. What has it been, 8 years ago? I applied for the Elkhart Memorial job and didn't get it, but then I was offered the defense coordinator position, so I took that. And then I was the defense coordinator at Elkhart Memorial for 2 years for 3 years total, but then 2 years went by. I applied for the Elkhart Central job, and I didn't get that as well. And a lot of the reasons was I just didn't have that head coach experience, and coming from not having head coach experience to taking over at that time 5A programs is not something that happens often. So I took a chance on myself, and I stayed one more year, and then I started applying for other jobs, and took a chance, and Peru took a chance on me. I took a chance on myself, and here we are back at Elkhart. So that's kind of how it went about.
Yeah, and then we look at this Elkhart team, of course, in their very first season under former coach Josh Shattuck, they had some really good success in their very first year. And then, of course, last year, not exactly the year that they had expected. But this year for your team, 7-2 going into the postseason tournament next week. That's definitely very respectable. And you've got some good wins, the week 1 win over Concord 33-0, the win against Northridge. And, of course, Northridge was the 4A state runner-up. So the team has done a really nice job at getting some good wins throughout the course of the year. When you got the position to be the head coach at Elkhart, what was the first thing that you told your team, and what did you try to implement from the get-go for the Lions?
Yeah, one of the first things I can remember just communicating is that we will be consistent champions here in Elkhart. Again, 8 years ago when I decided to move my family to Elkhart, I was aware that there was a possibility that the school might merge, and so I knew what that entailed, and obviously it took a little bit longer to happen, and I made my decisions based on the fact that I would one day want to be the head coach of one high school at Elkhart, and so I've been fortunate to have that opportunity. And but the expectation has been, and as long as I'm the leader, it always will be consistent championships. And so, yes, we do. We're 7-2 in the regular season, and then we got another game coming up here for sectionals. But I remember vividly, and I've been saying is that I did not come here to be 7-2. I did not come here to be 8-1 every year. We want to be consistent champions, and how that works. To be a consistent champion, we're talking 9-0 in the conference, and then moving and going as far as we can in the tournament. So there's still a lot of work to be done. We lost against some good competition. Again, and I'm just bringing it up. Last Friday was not how we play football, but it is how we played at the same time. So there's a lot of work to be done still here in Elkhart, and I'm excited for the work of building a consistent champion here.
Yeah, and you mentioned that about the two games, and let's give props. The two teams that you've lost to are absolutely great teams in their respective classes. Of course, with Penn, you guys lost that one 21-20, but of course, Penn is having themselves a phenomenal year. And then, of course, New Prairie, Casey's done a great job with that program over there, one of the top teams, arguably, in 4A. It's got to be a good feeling, though, as a coach. I'm always a big believer in if you want to make your team the best, you need to play the best around. And luckily, you're in an area that is filled with lots of good competition and some of the best players in this part of the state.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say, that we get to play against some good athletes, against some good coached programs. And that's always good, because week in, week out, and you might have some teams, like this year, we've had some teams that, hey, they're down a little bit, but you know they're not going to be down for long. They're well coached. They have a good system in place, so we get that. And then we're also going to be, we're looking, and we're going to try to beef up our schedule as well to play other 6A, high-level 6A programs, because, again, we're trying to be consistent champions. That's the goal. That's the expectation. And in order to do that, we got to prep ourselves for a long run in a tournament, and it's hard to do that if you're not playing that level of physicality, that level of depth for teams. So we know what we got to do. There's a lot of work to be done this off season in the weight room. But I'm just excited for the opportunity. I do enjoy the competition currently that we're getting. Just the players. Every team, there's some players that can cause problems, and so it's excited to play against some good competition for sure.
Can you talk to our viewers and our listeners about the jump? Because, of course, Peru is definitely a smaller school, at least that in comparison to Elkhart, a very big school. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe just the shock factor, whatever it may be, from having to go to kind of a smaller school like Peru and then go up and be the head coach for a school like Elkhart? Can you talk to us a little bit just about what the kind of big differences were between those two programs?
Yeah, so and some people think like, oh, your small schools, they don't have talent, and that's really not the case. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is just the number. It's like you get some 6A teams, and it's just depth, right? So specifically at Peru, I had some very talented athletes. I had some athletes that would have started and could start at 6A programs. But the thing is, there's not a lot of them, mm-hmm. because it's a smaller number by comparison. And when you come to 6A programs, you just have more depth. You have kids that you just have more kids, so the chances of you having more athletes just increases. And I remember when I was in Illinois, because in Illinois there's 8A, it goes up to 8, and when I moved to Elkhart, it was 5A. So, and I just remember, and I was laughing because there's some kids like they were just backups for me in Illinois. That I was like, man, I wish I had right about now. And so it's just the amount of kids that you have, and that's the biggest difference. Like I've seen and I've competed against 1A kids. I'm like, man, like, you're very athletic, you're very talented. And so I think some people just think, oh, it's a small school, that means they ain't got no athletes. So that's not how it works. Or that means that the team's not good. That's not how it works. It's the level of play, it's just the depth that they have. And that's been the biggest thing, coming from having a program where we built it up to where we're about 50 players, I think, in 9th through 12th at Peru, and we were going to, I think this year I was planning on close to 60, 55 kids, but then coming from that to having be me in charge of 120 kids, and next year I'm thinking 140 kids from 9 through 12, that's the biggest difference.
Tell us a little bit about the staff, because as we said, Elkhart's kind of in a unique situation where I believe it's only their third official season for high school football since the merger between Central and Memorial. So just tell us a little bit about your staff and what made them so qualified for you to help, because obviously whatever they're doing and you're doing has definitely worked out over the course of these last 9 games.
Yeah, our staff has been so huge into the development of our program. And so the fortunate thing for me is, because one of the things that I learned, and I did this, so my first year at Peru, I learned that I changed too much. Like, there's things that I know I just do differently as a coach. This is who I am, and that's how I want to run a program. And so I went into Peru, and I just changed everything, and so everything was so new to so many people, and it was just hard. And like we struggled, but I think I cost us about 2 games that year just because I changed so much, and it was so hard for them to grasp it quick. And so I vowed not to make that mistake, and I vowed to just make sure that I I will make changes, but I'm going to drastically not do it so drastically. And so we did that. And the fortunate part, we have a good foundation here, and pretty much all of our coaches that are on staff, for the most part, were already on staff. And so we were fortunate that we kept pretty much everybody. And so that was good. So kids were familiar with the staff, and I was the new one. So a lot of the things I tried to, terminology changes, we tried not to have it change too much. We try to say, hey, this is the same as this. This is what you ran. This is how it looks now. This is what it's called now. And so that was good. But our coaching staff, man, I'm very fortunate. Like I've always, when we talk about 6A ball, and it's hard, right? I've always wanted to be at a spot where we had the coaches that were knowledgeable. We had the coaches that understood the culture we're trying to create. We had the coaches that built relationships right and loved on kids how I expect them to. And we have that in Elkhart. And again, and I want to be able to just to take care of them better, and I want to continue to build them up as much as I can. But I'm at a position where I don't have a position. I don't have to call the offense or to call the defense, and because we have qualified people to do that, and they're doing it the right way, and they're working their tails off for our kids and for our community. So we have some really good coaches, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we're able to adapt and adjust to my coaching style, to how I think a program should be built, is because our staff just did a wonderful job of saying, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're rolling, and this is how we're teaching it, and then they went off and they just killed it.
When we take a look from those summer workouts when kind of everyone was trying to get adjusted to a new system or a new coach, because that can always be challenging. But like you said, the kids have really seemed to have bought into what you want to do. Just tell us a little bit about who are some of the players that from the get-go that you were there that you expected to make a huge impact. And then on the flip side, who are some players that maybe you weren't expecting to do big things, and yet at the point of the season, they've actually surprised you? Who are a couple players that have really stepped it up for you over the course of this season?
Yeah, for me, it's good and bad. I'm not a point kids out type of person. I just don't. I just look at it more as a group. And of course, there's kids that, like, by name, I can usually by name say, hey, this kid has done a wonderful job, and people know that. They see it on the stats, they see it in all of those things. But like our senior class, and that is one, I would say, a group of kids that not because I didn't know them, right? I didn't know them, but I just know usually when you come into a place and you're the new guy and it's their senior year and you're changing this and you're changing that. And again, I try not to change too much, but there's things I just have to change because I'm a different person. Not good or bad, I'm just different. And so I really thought that I was going to get more pushback from our senior class, and it was going to be a little harder to get the things that I wanted to implement in, because again, they got 1 year and they're done. And that was a surprise for me. Our senior class did such a wonderful job of saying, this is what we're doing. And again, do they love all of it? I'm sure they didn't love it all, but they stood by it. They said, this is what we're doing. And when they did that, everyone else followed suit. And so definitely it has to be our senior class. Like, they were just a wonderful group of kids, hardworking. They get challenged. They respond well. And they were just willing to say, hey, this is my last year, but I'm not going to fight the changes that I see. And again, I think there's nothing that I'm doing that kids can look at and say, oh, this is bad for me. At the end of the day, they realize that this is good for me. This is good for my development physically. This is good for my development emotionally. This is good for my development as a young man. But it's still hard. Change is hard. And they did a wonderful job adjusting to that change. So I'm definitely proud of our senior class.
Yeah. So if you had to kind of describe this season in one word, as you said, you get a new job, you move up to a new area, a lot of question marks, especially with an Elkhart team that went 500, so very respectable. And then, of course, this year, great success for the Lions. If you had to kind of describe the regular season, and then as you guys get ready for next week against Warsaw, how would you describe this season in one word?
You tricked me there. I had a few words.
How about a sentence? We'll give you a sentence.
A sentence, it's a good starting point. It's a good starting point. And I think if you say one word, I would say foundation. Because I think a lot of people on the outside will look and will say, man, 7-2, we had a really good, successful regular season. And I'm here, and what I'm communicating to our kids, what I'm saying to myself is, we have not met expectations. That's not what we're doing. We can be better, and we will be better. And again, now we have a playoff. We'll see how we compete in the playoffs and how we finish this season strong. But I am proud to be the head coach of Elkhart High School. We have fantastic kids. We have fantastic coaches. Obviously, I believe that we have some great coaches who I'm fortunate enough to coach with. We have great parent support. The amount of things that they've done to support our kids is phenomenal. And we have great administrative support. So we got a good thing coming, but it is the start of something great. And it is a good foundation to begin with, and to kind of look back and kind of say, okay, this is where we kind of set the bar, and here we go, continue to raise the bar every single year.
And finally, to wrap things up here, of course, as you mentioned with your playoff, next, luckily you guys get a bye week, so you get lots of time to kind of get some rest and also get ready as you take on a Warsaw team at Warsaw. Of course, Bart Curtis has done a phenomenal job with that program. What are going to be some of the things that you're going to focus on in practice to get ready to head over to Warsaw and try to get a good victory against the Tigers next Friday?
Yeah, it is pretty cool just to get to 2 weeks to prepare. It's like college over here. I'm enjoying this part because for me as a young coach to get the opportunity to compete against a Hall of Fame coach and his program is exciting for me. And we will need. They're good. It's a good program. It's a solid program. It's a well-coached program. They understand their system inside and out, and they know the answers to every problem that they will face in the game. And so that part is so exciting for me because I believe that our program is a really good program, a well-run program, and that we have answers to any problem that we face. And so we get to compete against that, and it's going to be good to get just 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks for our kids to heal. Again, relax a little bit, enjoy time with family. But then we come in, we work for a little bit, and we send them home, and then we get a little break, and then the following week we just go at it and just ready for a good competition. I'm just excited. I think every time you get an opportunity to compete is an exciting opportunity, and when we get to do that against a high-level program, against a well-coached program with a system they believe in, it's a beautiful thing.
Again, Romison Saint-Louis joining us here on the Coach's Box from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. We'll be back after this quick timeout right here on 91.1 FM The Globe and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and Online Banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
For 30 years, the Lilliard Insurance Agency has been a proud sponsor of local sports in Michiana. Lilliard Insurance Agency is an independent insurance provider which offers its customer auto, home, business, life, and health insurance. They're located at 410 Lincoln Way West in Osceola and 17060 State Road 23 in South Bend. For more information, their phone number is 574-674-0015, and the website is www.realvalueins.com. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com.
Welcome back here to the Coach's Box on Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. So glad you could join us on 91.1 FM The Globe and globeradio.org. Huge shout out over to Goshen College and their tremendous work. As always, Tanner Camp here, and we're very, very happy to be joined by the head coach for the Concord Minutemen football team, and that's Craig Koehler. Team right now 4-5 as they get ready for postseason play. As they won't play on Friday, they'll play next Friday, indeed, on October 28th, as they will take on the Goshen over there. And Coach, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking some time to talk.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I always enjoy my time with you and Paul, and appreciate the coverage and everything you guys do for high school football. So always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Yeah, Coach, we take a look at this season for you guys, and of course, 4-5, I know in comparison to last year's team, not exactly where you'd want to be at, but you did get some good wins, including that 14-0 win over Jimtown. And, you played Warsaw pretty tough as well, and got some other good wins over Goshen, who you see next Friday in Wawasee, and then finished out with a convincing win against Plymouth. So over the course of this season, what do you think from a team or even just from a player perspective, what do you think was the biggest area of improvement that you saw from your guys this year?
Well, Tanner, we were very inexperienced to start our season, and we've been a work in progress. But I can tell you, I think we've played pretty good defense all year. Even on the games, maybe that the scoreboard. Obviously, Northwood's got a really good football team. That was a game that got away from us, and Week 1 against Elkhart, I can't remember what that final was, but that game was, I believe, a little more competitive than what the scoreboard said it was. Tanner, we have gotten better every week. We're 4-5. Week 7, we're up 16-3 at halftime against Northridge, and really. It should have been that's honestly what cost us that game. It should have been much worse at halftime. We kind of dominated the game for about 2.5 quarters and ended up letting it slip away. We lose 29-28. That's in week 7. And then we turn around in week 8, and we're at home against Mishawaka, and we fumble on the 1.5-yard line with 1 minute to go in the game, down 15-11. So. We are playing. I know our record is 4-5, but we had 2 really competitive games in week 7 and 8 before our Plymouth game. If we win those games, we're 6-3 and we're trending in the right direction. And what we have tried to emphasize to our players is, the result on the scoreboard in those 2 contests. From an outsider's perspective, may not show where we are at in terms of how we have developed as a team. Like I said, if we're 6-3 and we had won our last, 5 in a row after a 1-3 start, then the narrative is probably different from the media and from everyone outside our program about where we're headed. But that being said, this has been a really enjoyable team, and in terms of how we have practiced and how we have approached each week with a willingness to get better and a willingness to be coached, it has been. I know it's hard to believe, but with being 4-5, we're not. That's not good enough for our school, and we know that. But it has been a very enjoyable team to coach, and. Obviously, we're looking forward to the postseason. We got to go over to. If we're fortunate enough to win, we would host the winner of Mishawaka and Adams.
Yeah, and Coach, you mentioned that perfectly. With those last 2 losses in tough ones against Northridge, who, of course, was the 4A state runner-up last year, and Mishawaka, and as you said, only a 4-point loss to a team that's really proven to be strong, especially that offensive and defensive line up front. And you said it perfectly, and I'm a believer in this as well, that even though you see 4-5, the reality is you always want your schedule to get you ready for the most important time of the year since everyone makes it, and that is the postseason tournament. So even though though you guys are at 4-5, you mentioned it, the last 5 games were all either wins or games that were decided by literally less than a touchdown. So at the very least, I would think that you're still very happy with what direction the team is going as you get ready for Goshen next Friday.
Yeah, I think sometimes, as coaches, and not just as coaches, but everyone involved, all these different coaching cliches and all the coach speak and, each week and all that rhetoric. But this, honestly, I can truthfully say, believe, since our week 4 loss to Warsaw, and that was a competitive game. That was a 6-0 game at halftime. We were not very good offensively at that time of the year, and we're not great offensively now, but we are better than we were. I can truthfully say we have improved each week, and I think we're playing competitive now. Obviously, our sectional with 2 conference schools, and obviously Mishawaka's, their record speaks for itself. Obviously, it's a tall task, but at the same time, I do believe that our kids, we still have our kids. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to come to practice tomorrow and eager and ready to try and make a little run here in the tournament.
Yeah, and you talk about some of those players, of course, another really good team, and some of them had moved on and graduated. But when you take a look at this year's team, who were some of the players that you were expecting to make a big impact for this Minutemen team? And then on the flip side, who were some players that maybe you weren't sure how they would perform, and then ultimately they've actually exceeded expectations? So who are a couple players, both that you were expecting and maybe not even expecting, that have stepped it up this year for your squad?
Yeah, well, certainly, obviously our middle linebacker has been well covered. He's an all-state player as a junior, and he's a really, really good player. He's our best player, and he's our leader and our hardest worker. All those, it's been well documented about Armin and what kind of kid he is and what kind of player he is. So certainly there's been no surprises there. I think we've had some linemen that have gotten better through the year. Our field defensive end, Cody Byler's had a really good year at defensive end and has really matured and become a pretty good high school football player, and we still have him for another year. Chris Adams is another kid that was a JV kid last year, has become kind of a 1.5 lineman for us. He's a starter on defense and plays some offensive line as well. He's kind of emerged. From a skill perspective, still not, we're not scoring a ton of points. Obviously, we scored quite a bit here last week, but we have not been consistently scoring a lot of points. There's really no one that's just popped from an offensive skill standpoint. Obviously, Titus Hackworth was a returning starter. He's really been a nice surprise defensively. He's been pretty good for us at linebacker, and his backup on offense has been kind of another player that we had hoped could spell Titus on offense. Shamon Wells Moore, and he had a nice year at running back. So we've had a few kids. We are not a real sexy team to watch. If you followed our program in the last several years, we've always had some dynamic, explosive players on the perimeter that can kind of go make plays when a play is not there to be made. That's not how we are built this year. We got to play great defense. We got to possess the ball a little bit. We got to be able to run it. We are not going to throw it 30, 35 times a game like we have been in the past. So we are built differently. Like I said, we like how competitive our defense has been, and our offense has been a slow work in progress, but we are executing and operating at a higher level now, obviously, than we were early in the year.
You know, Coach, and I think one of the always the unique situations, at least because of what class you guys are in, which of course is 5A in that sectional 11, is that, you know, unlike basically 4, 3, 2, and 1A, you guys get this entire week to help prepare and get yourself ready for Goshen. So from a coach's perspective, do you see that as a benefit to be able to get a whole extra amount of time just to prepare for Goshen and just prepare for any team that's in front of you?
Yeah, I think obviously we had our all-conference meeting on Monday, and half of us in our league, you know, it's us, Mishawaka, Goshen, then obviously Warsaw. We're all off this week. And then the other half of our league are all 4A schools, so they're all playing Friday. So I mean, every year you talk about this dynamic of the bye, and I think it's kind of a year-to-year thing. I think there are years. You know, there are years where maybe you're banged up. You really want this week is really beneficial to try and get healthy. You know, there's years where maybe you're playing really good football and you are healthy and you don't want to take a week off. So I think it's a year-to-year thing. For us, I think we probably fall somewhere in the middle of that scenario. Certainly, just from being able to take a breath. Not only our players but our coaches, we've been able to take a few days off here this week. We're going for the first time tomorrow. So it's been nice to have some time off. But we're pretty healthy. We don't have any guys that are out or that we will be getting back because of the bye. So from that standpoint, it really doesn't help us. I don't know. I'm fairly indifferent this year. There's been years, certainly, the bye has helped us from a health standpoint, but this year, I would have been fine with playing this Friday. Mm-hmm.
Well, and then as we can kind of continue that conversation, you'd mentioned that, if I remember hearing correctly, that you said that the next day, which would be Thursday, which will be aired by the time of this recording, is the first time you'll practice. I'm just curious, what are kind of some of the things that you've been focusing on? Have you really gotten a chance to, or have you really focused on Goshen? Again, don't forget, you guys played Goshen back on September 23rd, where you guys took care of business with a 37-7 win. But still, have you really focused on any game prep or getting yourself ready for Goshen? Or have you just kind of taken this time just to look back on the season and just kind of do some fine tune-up to get ready for next Friday?
Well, I think you do both. So our practice tomorrow would be, it is going to be identical to what a Monday practice would look like in a normal game week. So we will have our team meetings. We will have all of our scouting report stuff. We will watch tape with our players. We will walk through on the field with any checks, those kind of things. So tomorrow for us is going to be a Monday. So to answer your question, yes, all of our game plan, all the film breakdown, all the data entry in the huddle, all that has been done. So we are going to approach tomorrow like a normal Monday, and then Friday and next Monday, we're gonna try and focus on us a little bit. That's the part of looking back on some things maybe we should be doing better as a program. I know defensively we have not forced enough takeaways. We've played good defense, but we have not taken the ball away enough, and it's not because we haven't emphasized it, and not because we haven't focused on it, but we probably need to focus on it, need to leave a little more. So those are some of the things that we're going to try and hit hard on Friday and Monday. And we'll get them out of there a little earlier on Friday, Monday than what we typically would. And then we'll hit Tuesday, and it'll be a normal Tuesday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be a normal game week next week. So that's kind of the way we've done it. We've done it different ways. But, yeah, tomorrow is going to be like a Monday for us, and then we basically have 2 extra days of practice with the Friday, Monday that we would not typically have in a normal game week, and then Thursday will be just normal routine.
And we look back on the season, and you've talked about it already, that with the Wawasee win, with the 16-0 win, that was really the big start after tough games against Elkhart and then tough games against Northwood. But was there any one particular game that in your mind there was a real big turning point, whether it was the players out on the field or maybe it was even from a coaching perspective? Was there any one game that you really kind of saw something different, or saw that the players were just kind of approached the game with a different mindset, or just was there any? So again, was there one game that really stood out in terms of that the team is starting to kind of figure out how to play as one unit?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and the scoreboard would not say otherwise, but we got our butts kicked pretty good week 3 against Northwood. They're a really good team. Very explosive on offense. They threw the ball over our head multiple times. We played. Honestly, they didn't really try to run it much against us, but they threw it all over us. That's a bit of an Achilles heel for us. Our pass defense has not been great. But that following week, we're 1-2 at that point. At that point, we had lost to 2 pretty good teams, Elkhart and Northwood. And we had Warsaw coming to our place, who was also 3-0 and were very impressive on film. And I was, as a staff, very interested to see how we were going to respond in that game against Warsaw. And we, like I said, at that point in the season, we were not a very good offensive football team. And again, we're not great now, but we are better. So we didn't score. We didn't score, but that game was. Like I said, that game was 6-0 at halftime, and we battled our butts off. That was a physical game, and our players, I could tell after that game, we had kids that were emotional, and it was 18-0 loss, but we had kids that were emotional after the game in our locker room. It was very evident that we were not going to go south, even though we were 1-3 at that time. I really felt good how our kids reacted and responded after that loss, and how they played in the game. It was a very competitive game against a good football team, and you just you don't know for sure, but you kind of have a feeling on which way a season is going to go. And like I said, we weren't. We lost the close game to. The 2 close games to Northridge and Mishawaka, both games that we thought we had a chance to win. If coulda, woulda, shoulda, but if we were able to have pulled those games out, we would have won 5 in a row to end the season. Now we're not there. We went 3-2 the rest of the way, lost those 2 games, but our kids, I think, are in a good mental place right now in terms of they believe that they can win. I think they believe they can win a championship here in the postseason, and that's obviously really important. If you can keep your kids plugged in and they still believe, you can get a lot of things accomplished. I know we will practice well these few weeks we're still playing here in the tournament.
And that's when it definitely matters most. And finally, as we get ready to wrap things up again, you've definitely gotten well more than a week before you get ready to take on the Redhawks over at Goshen, 2-7 overall. And as I've mentioned, a 37-7 win. But as you know, once it comes playoff time, anything is possible. But in order for the Minutemen to get that win over Goshen, get to the sectional championship, what are going to be some of the biggest thing that the team is going to focus on in order to get the win over Goshen?
Well, I can tell you, Tanner, and this may be a little bit before your time. It's almost a little bit before my time. The history of this game between these 2 schools going back into the 90s, there have been some incredible games. There have been some incredible playoff games between these 2 schools. So whenever we play Goshen, it's different. Our schools are about 5 miles apart. Tom Wagaman is as good of a football coach as there is up here. He is as good of a football coach, and I was super happy that he's back coaching in our league. I know that their players will be ready to play us. Now, that being said, on paper, are we the better team? Sure. I mean, it's yes, we are the favored team, but once the ball goes on the tee, none of that matters. We're going to have to do the same thing we did the first time we played them. We have to control the run game. If we can make them one-dimensional offensively, I think we have a good chance to win the game again. If they are able to establish the run, we could be in trouble.
And again, Craig Koehler joining us here on the Coach's Box, head coach for the Concord Minutemen, as his team gets ready to take on Goshen next Friday on October 28th. So we look forward to seeing how his team and the Minutemen perform in that game. We'll be back after this quick timeout, but we'll be live from the Coach's Box here from Granger's, from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana. My name's Tanner Camp, and again, this is the Coach's Box right here on 91.1 FM The Globe and the Regional Radio Sports Network.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click, and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click, and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com.
And thank you once again, as always, to Dante Stanton. We welcome you back to the Coach's Box here on 91.1 FM The Globe and the Regional Radio Sports Network. And again, big shout-out to Romison Saint-Louis, the head coach over for the Elkhart Lions football team. And then, of course, to Craig Koehler, the head coach for the Concord Minutemen football team. As, again, the Elkhart Lions will be at Warsaw next week as they take on the Tigers. And then the Concord Minutemen next week, they will be traveling over to Goshen, not too far from where Dante Stanton and the Maple Leafs are, to take on the Red Hawks for their opening games. And as we talk about that, before we swing things over with Dante Stanton as well, we have 3 sectional football games coming up as the playoffs are officially underway. The Gary Westside Cougars are traveling over to Hobart to take on the Berkey's. Paul Condra will head over there. You can tune into that game on WeFM 95.9 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 Central Time. I'm going to be heading over to Culver Military Academy as the Eagles are going to be taking on the Lowell Red Devils. That is going to be a 7:15 Eastern start time, 6:15 Central, wherever you're at and tuning in. And finally, the Kankakee Valley Cougars got arguably the toughest draw in the entire sectional as they will be taking on the New Prairie Cougars over at Omzi Miller Field. And that'll be Vince Gray and his crew heading over to New Prairie, and that is for a 7:15 Eastern start time or a 6:15 Central Time. Well, enough about football. We're going to bring Dante Stanton into the mix here. And Dante, as we know here, we're getting ready right near the end of the fall sports for Crossroads League playing specifically for the Maple Leafs. And let's start off with the men's soccer team right now. They currently sit at 7th, or tied for 6th, with Spring Arbor in the latest rankings. And, of course, that's a very competitive men's league as they got Bethel, who's in the top 10, Grace, who's played competitively, and Huntington, who's receiving votes. But the Goshen men, with their 2-3-1 record in the Crossroads League, they've been playing some good soccer. For any listeners that may not know about the Goshen Maple Leafs men's soccer team, what do you think is the biggest thing that makes this team stand out in the Crossroads League?
Well, I think it's right off the bat, it's how well they can keep things close and how well they can keep things tight against some nationally ranked opponents. I mean, you look at it against the Bethel University Pilots, just 2 weeks ago on the 8th, they were playing Bethel at home, and they kept it to a 1-0 game. Bethel wasn't able to score for the first 70 minutes of the contest. You had players playing out of their minds. And I think what's big about this team, what keeps them competitive as competitive as they are in this Crossroads League, is that they play up to their competition. So when how you have a powerhouse team coming in, they always play up to the competition. They play at their best when they're playing against a team that is nationally ranked or that is one of the top teams in the Crossroads League even. They play their best soccer against the best teams.
Yeah, and with that ranking right now, where they're at in the Crossroads League and with their last 3 matches, they're home for their final home contest against Marion, who is, as of right now, out of contention to make the Crossroads League postseason tournament. They take on Spring Arbor, the team they're tied with currently, so that'll pose to be a really important match for the Maple Leafs, and they're at Huntington, again, currently receiving votes. So for those last 3 matches, and you'd mentioned with Goshen kind of playing up to their competition's level, that is a good opportunity for Goshen to really make some noise. They get 1 win. They maybe not, I wouldn't say secure it, but 2 wins would almost certainly do that. So some very winnable games for the Maple Leaf men's soccer team.
Yeah, certainly. I think that, some early confidence wins in the season and some really close games in the midseason have kept this team afloat when it comes to kind of confidence. Because, they started off the season with a record that was far from what you would far from a record that I wouldn't say represented the team very well, because it wasn't until actually October 1st that they got their first win of the season. And despite that, they're still in the thick of things in the Crossroads League. And I do think that these final stretch of games are going to be winnable games at that. I think they've got the contest at Marion. It's a home game. We're going to have that on 91.1 The Globe. Coverage of that one starts 6:45, 7 o'clock game start this Saturday. But, this is a Marion team that, like you said, is definitely kind of on the outs, definitely on the outside looking in as far as the Crossroads League tournament goes. I think 1 win would almost be enough to secure it. Spring Arbor University is going to be probably the deciding factor for the Maple Leafs. So if they can get past Marion, I think that Spring Arbor game is going to tell you a lot about this Goshen squad. And I think it'll also tell you a little bit about how the rest of the Crossroads League is going to shape out. Spring Arbor's 1-1-4 in the Crossroads League. I don't think that the Maple Leafs, with the way that they played lately, have anything to worry about against Spring Arbor or Marion for that matter.
And then on the flip side for the women's team, currently sitting at 8th right now, so they would make the tournament if it were to stop. But unfortunately, as they play the same opponents, then same teams, Dante, but unfortunately very different story. As all three, or the last 3 teams, first they'll take on number 2 Marion in the entire country. Then they'll take on at home against Spring Arbor, currently ranked 4, and then Huntington, who has yet to win a Crossroads League game. So the last game, at the very least, is certainly a doable one to win. But Dante, anytime, and that is credit to the Crossroads League and how good and competitive in all the sports there. And you and I have talked about that. The Crossroads League, in our opinion, might be the best conference in the entire NAIA. So, but for the Maple Leafs, they're going to have to really dig deep and play their best soccer all year long to, at the very least, even getting a tie between either Marion or Spring Arbor would be a huge, huge win for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and you never want to go for the tie. It's never a part of your mindset coming in that you say, I want to go into this and I want to get a tie.
Right.
That's never part of the mindset. You always want to go out there and get the win. But they are 4-9-1 on the season. They haven't had to deal with ties too much. But I think this team is eerily similar to the men's team, which they play up to their competition. Against receiving votes, Taylor, this past weekend, it was a 1-0 loss. The week before that, earlier in the week, this past Wednesday, they lost to Grace at home, 2-1. Before that, it was another 2-1 loss at Bethel University. And then before that, it was a win. So all of these past 4 stretches of games have either been 1-score losses or a win. And I think that this is a team that is, again, playing their best soccer of the season. Like I said, eerily similar to the men in that way. They're just playing their best soccer of the season as it comes to a close. I think that their biggest hole overall right now is the offense. I pointed this out to you actually earlier on in the show when we were talking, and they haven't scored more than 1 goal in a game since way back since they beat West Virginia Tech 6-0, and that was back on September 5th. So it's been almost a month and a half since they've scored more than 1 goal in a game, and their offensive decline has gone through ups and downs. There was a stretch where they went 0-4-1 and didn't score a single goal during that 5-game stretch. But now they're starting to pick up the offense a little bit. They've scored in 3 of their last 4 contests, and they're looking competitive in every single one of those contests as well. So I think that, Marion University, number 2 team in the nation, that's going to be trouble. Spring Arbor, same thing. But with the way that the standings are at the bottom of the Crossroads League right now, with Huntington and St. Francis down there, I'm not sure Goshen has that much to worry about, especially since St. Francis isn't playing Huntington, and Huntington isn't playing St. Francis in this final stretch of games. So I think at minimum, Goshen can secure that 8th spot. And it depends on, how the Bethel Pilots finish out the season on whether they move up to 7th, because Bethel's at 1-4-1. And their only win was against the Maple Leafs. So if, the Pilots lose out and Goshen is able to pick up that win against Huntington at least, they could find themselves in the 7th spot.
Yeah, and then as we kind of switch gears as we head from the field to the court as we get ready to wrap up the show here, of course, the preseason conference polls came out for both the men and the women, as the men are projected to finish last in the Crossroads League at 10, and the women projected tied for 7th in the preseason conference polls. We'll start with the men first. Dante, you and I have talked about this a bit, and sure, when you take a look at the talent with Seth Maxwell at Indiana Wesleyan, with Antoine Cushenberry over at St. Francis, but I don't know about you, but 10th in the preseason polls, I don't necessarily think, yes, they have a new coach in Kyle Capps, so it'll be a bit of a readjustment, but at the same time, Capps was an assistant beforehand, and the players seem to really be on board. So just go ahead and give us your thoughts with 10. If it's me personally, I still think that if the men play at their best, they can really compete. They got a good win against Huntington, so I think the men's team actually has a really good shot, and not only just not finishing 10th, but even potentially making the Crossroads League tournament.
Yeah, and kind of even on a little bit of a down year last year, not necessarily a down year, but a year where the expectations were a little bit higher. They still eked out 7 wins, which was 4 more than the year before that. So I would certainly say the Maple Leafs are on the rise. They're not a young team by any means, but they do have a lot of fresh talent that was kind of injected into the offense last year that's carrying over to this year. I don't think 10 is the right spot for them. I would feel more comfortable putting them around to the 8 to 7 range in the preseason polls. You guys got, you look at their starting lineup, and out the gate, you've got 3 guys who score an average of 11 points per game. You've got a fantastic threat inside the post with Michael Johnson. His post turnaround moves, his jump shot is insane. It's one of the best that I've personally seen in my young broadcasting career. And on the other end of that, he's a great defender as well. He's got 42 blocks, which led the team. You've got Elias Ramirez, who was just dynamite from 3 last year. Averaging 40% from deep. He knocked down 77 threes last year, and was one of the key contributors in this Goshen team that took, at the time, the number 1 team in the nation, the St. Francis Cougars, all the way to the buzzer. Goshen a couple times last year took a lot of teams straight to the buzzer. So I think that this is a Goshen College team that is tough, very, very strong, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, not young necessarily, but experienced enough. It's a good mix between experience and youthfulness that I think that Coach Capps is going to bring the best out of those guys. And as you mentioned, he was an associate head coach. He's been with this team for a long time. He played at Goshen College. He knows this team like the back of his hand. And I know, talking to a lot of the players, that they trust Coach Capps, and they trust everything that he's instilled in the offense and the defense this season. I think the men's team, definitely double-digit wins. I would say closer to 15 wins on the season.
And then we'll give a quick wrap up here because we know we're a little short on time with everything. But for the women's side, I think 7 is going to be interesting. But I think the one thing we can always be certain, as long as Coach Miller's there, you can never count out that Goshen Maple Leaf women's team.
No, absolutely not. They lost a couple seniors last year that really, really ran this team for 4 years and did a fantastic job of doing that. Grayson Cockerham, Tanisha Chapman, among just 2. And you could go on and on with that list because they had so many great players on last year's roster that were seniors. Janara Flowers was another one, Kiara Copeland. But they've got at the same time, they've got so many great players coming back. You look at the 2023 roster, and you've got 2 all-conference honorable mentions on this team right out the gate that are both sophomores. These are guys that came in and immediately made impacts for this squad and are going to do all that they can to lift this team up. And I think they're going to do a great job of doing that. I think that 6th or 7th is a decent spot for where the Leafs are at right now. High end of the scale, I could see them finishing somewhere between 4th and 5th if all the pieces coalesce correctly. And according to Coach Miller, there's a lot of attitude on this team that they've harnessed in a positive way. So I can definitely see that working out for the Maple Leafs.
Once again, Dante Stanton, you definitely hear his voice on more than one occasion this year for some men's and women's soccer, as well as the men's and women's basketball teams. And Dante Stanton, always appreciate you with the board, both for Penn football, Penn basketball, and basically being a big-time voice for Maple Leafs. And I know I certainly appreciate you tuning in and giving your take on the Maple Leafs. Best of luck with the broadcasting for the rest of the school year.
Thanks, Tanner. Best of luck to you as well. And hey, we'll have all those broadcasts on 91.1 The Globe and all home broadcasts on GoLeafs.net/live as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to do it here for the Coaches Box. Once again, a huge shout-out to Dante Stanton, a huge shout-out to Romison Saint-Louis and Koehler for taking time to interview with me. Don't forget, tune in to our website at rrsn.com for IUSB Volleyball, as they are now live and in pregame coverage, is getting ready to take on the receiving votes St. Xavier Cougars, so be sure that you check that out. That's going to do it here from Beef O'Brady's here in Granger, Indiana, from all of us, the Regional Radio Sports Network, and for everyone at 91.1 The Globe, my name is Tanner Camp. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to send it back over to the culturally progressive music, and thank you again for tuning into the Coaches Box on 91.1 FM The Globe and the Regional Radio Sports Network, saying so long from Beef O'Brady's.